Hello, my name is Tony. Robert Clouse directed one mega successful blockbusting all-time classic film in his career. Golden Needles ain't it, naturally. That would be Enter the Dragon, the greatest martial arts movie ever made, with the greatest martial arts star in the lead. A film that was an international box office smash, one that kept going on the circuit for what seemed like ages. Golden Needles, by comparison, when released in Hong Kong, played for only one day and took in a grand total of 18 Hong Kong dollars before being pulled from circulation. I'm not trying to put you off, but to say this film was not a financial or critical success is something that cannot be easily overstated. It was a complete disaster. I caught it on release in the UK as one half of a double bill with Whoever Slew Auntie Roo, a Jimmy Sangster scripted latter-day Whatever Happened to Baby Jane wannabe entry into the hag horror genre featuring Shelley Winters and Ralph Richardson. Hardly inspiring stuff, but I went to see it anyway. As a result, and on the positive side, I wound up rather enjoying Golden Needles, if not being particularly wowed by it. So you may well be wondering, what's the point in reviewing it, Bush? Sounds pretty much like a bum steer. In some respects, that's accurate. However, the point being this: I've just rewatched on Blu-ray. Kino Lorber decided to remaster and release it. And more importantly, Joe Don Baker is in the lead. Joe Don Baker passed away in May of this year. I like Joe Don Baker. He's been in some of my favourite films. He partnered Robert Duvall in John Flynn's kinetically sparky mob thriller The Outfit. He was the lethal hitman Molly on Walter Matthau's trail in Don Siegel's masterful Charlie Varick. And he made a big impact in the beautiful Hicksploitation film Walking Tall as real-life Tennessee lawman Buford Pusser. To film fans of a certain age and masculine persuasion, he was an appealing and thrilling tough guy figure, with his edgy Texan drawl and imposing physical presence very far removed from your standard Hollywood pretty boy template, and more relatable for it. Trouble was, the movie industry didn't seem to know what to do with him. He was okay in a Hollywood production as a thuggish heavy or support act to the main star, like Steve McQueen in Junior Bonner, but not really the type you'd risk in a leading role on a big production. A bit too blue-collar for that. Sure, he featured in leading roles, but they graced smaller, lower-budgeted trash pulp actioners like Framed, Mitchell, Speed Trap, and The Pack, and Golden Needles. Yet Joe Don Baker was rarely out of work. As time went on, he transitioned comfortably and impressively into a very reliable character actor in films and TV. He appeared in 3 Bond movies as Bond villain Brad Whitaker in The Living Daylights, and the shady but jocular Felix Leiter stand-in Jack Wade in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. He really brought his acting credentials to the forefront when he played CIA agent Darius Jedburgh in Edge of Darkness. This was a popular, groundbreaking 1985 BBC series about murder, conspiracy, and impending nuclear disaster. For that part, he was nominated for a Best Actor BAFTA, ironically losing out to his Edge of Darkness co-star Bob Peck. As mentioned earlier, I like Joe Don Baker, specifically his rare, unpretentious quality, the effortless look and manner of someone who was grounded in a real world rather than a fictional illusion. It added a dimension of authenticity to his performances and the films he was in, no matter how unfeasible they might have been. It was something he shared with actors like Gene Hackman and Robert Duvall. These were people who didn't alienate or fail to entirely convince by being perfectly appointed and heroically infallible. Like they could be one of us almost. In tandem with that, although he frequently projected as a brooding, good old boy type, there was always a hint of intellect and thoughtfulness going on just below the surface of that stereotypical veneer. Made him just a little bit more of a source of interest and fascination, made you want to watch. So although Golden Needles might not seem like the most illustrious example to focus on as a tribute to the man, don't be so sure. He's in it, he's the lead, and he makes it more of an entertaining experience than it otherwise might have been. He had a talent for doing that sort of thing. The MacGuffin for Golden Needles cribs from the Maltese falcon, more the Chinese chaffinch though. An ancient golden statue complete with a set of golden needles, well, that's the title explained, map out forbidden acupuncture points on the human body. When applied correctly and in the correct order, the needles bestow incredible sexual virility and reinvigorated youth upon the recipient. It's like Viagra, only harder to swallow. However, the catch is, if the needles are not applied with accuracy, the subject will die an agonizing death. So we're in Hong Kong, and an old physically ailing Chinese bloke in a harem full of women who I doubt are his daughters has the statue in his possession. A crumbly acupuncturist applies the needles to his body, and he suddenly perks up, becomes all fit and lively like. His triumphant restoration to oven-ready Shagmeister status is short-lived, as two men in hazmat suits armed with flamethrowers bust in and torch the place and everyone in it. They steal the statue and leave. The men are minions of Hong Kong hoodlum Lin To Roy Chow. An American woman, Felicity Elizabeth Ashley, is out to secure the statue for her mysterious employer back in the States. Lin To bumps up the price and Felicity doesn't have the money to pay, so she turns to importer-exporter of Chinese goods and antiquities Quan Tony Lee to help her steal the statue. Quan asks his business partner, expat compulsive gambler and army veteran Dan Mason, Joe Don Baker, to whip it away from Lin To's premises. Dan is initially reluctant, but will do it on the proviso that he gets paid for his time and effort, and, as a bit of an amoral bonus, the fragrant Felicity agrees to have sex with him. Desperate to get hold of the statue, Felicity concedes. Well, what's a girl to do? Dan burgles Lin To's gaff, cracks the safe, beats up some henchmen, and avoids a load of venomous snakes to get the statue to Quan. Quan then sets about hiding it in a large urn of aromatic Chinese massage oil, and shipping it to their other partner in the States, Jeff, the great Jim Kelly. Dan gets to dance the horizontal bolero with Felicity in a sumptuous hotel room, and all is momentarily well, until he finds that Felicity has skipped town after neglecting to pay him, and Quan is murdered by Lin To's goons, who throw him through a skylight. Dan, with evening the score in mind, heads to America to meet with Jeff and get the statue back. To complicate matters further, Chinese government agent Sue Lin, Frances Fong, and her team are in pursuit of Dan because the statue is a national cultural artifact and the Chinese government want it returned. Throw into the mix Burgess Meredith as Winter, Felicity's wealthy but quite possibly criminally insane employer. He wants a statue for his own ends, as he doesn't care too much for the notion of dying. Let the games commence. Produced by American International Pictures, some indicator of the quality you can expect, Golden Needles is a fast-paced but uneven blend of lightly noirish action-adventure, kung fu beat-em-up, and Chinese mysticism. Provided you're in an undemanding mood, happy to ignore blithely atrocious tone-deaf dialogue, tolerate bargain basement plotting and carelessly hammy overacting, there are things you're in to enjoy. Joe Don Baker throws himself into it with enthusiasm. He's no martial artist, so he uses his sizable physical footprint like a battering ram, ploughing into enemies, hurling them asunder, swinging haymakers and brawling to prevail. Towards the end, when he's chased by a mob through the Kowloon Dockland and the narrow streets of the walled city, he certainly pounds it hell for leather. He's a likeable, roguish lead, despite coercing Felicity into having sex with him, which, it transpires, she's not too unhappy about really. Something of a romantic attachment develops, underscored by jovial mistrust and low-level deceit. There is reasonable on-screen chemistry between the two, which just about survives burial under the weight of the badly written verbal sparring. Elizabeth Ashley, a familiar face in the supporting casts of many a movie and US TV show, looks impossibly cool, attractive and fashionably statuesque. But the real feminine beauty is down to the fantastically lovely Frances Fong. You wouldn't mind getting beaten up by someone who looks this cute. At least I wouldn't. Anyway, let's not pursue that avenue any further though. Burgess Meredith brings home the ham. As a preening, sadistic dandy, a gleeful purveyor of camp villainy, he's like a cross between Truman Capote and a Jack Russell in a cravat. Then there's the marvellous Jim Kelly as Dan's old army buddy and partner Jeff. It's little more than a cameo, a guest starring role, which is a shame because you can never have too much Jim Kelly in a martial arts flavoured farrago of this type. Bumps it up a notch. Roy Chow makes a formidable villain of the sort you really love to hate, and it's also very satisfying when Dan throws him through a window and down a flight of stone steps longer and more precipitous than those in The Exorcist. Needless to say, he's pancaked by the end of that journey. Finally, as far as casting goes, in a pleasing nod to old Hollywood that isn't a stolen trope, the film has its fair share of those, veteran actress Anne Southern pops up as Dan's friend Finzi, owner of the Hong Kong dive bar and casino where Dan likes to hang out and lose money hand over fist. Robert Clouse directs in a very workmanlike way that wastes no time on subtlety or creative nuance. This is nowhere near the sort of prestige project that was Enter the Dragon, but it's a lean, lightweight, cheaply made well-made 90-minute workout that Clues propels along with casual energy. It does get some extra help from a funky score by Lalo Schifrin, even though he probably knocked it out over a very slow weekend. Still, it's Lalo Schifrin. Gotta come for something. The fights are good, the locations are good, it's an idle, time-burning, somewhat silly and forgettable action movie that wouldn't tax the intellect of a starfish. And, most importantly, Joe Don Baker is in it. And I like Joe Don Baker. Rest in peace, big guy. Abundant thanks for your time and attention. Feel free to do whatever you choose to do next. Hit like, don't like, comment, subscribe, check out my early access Patreon thing, or even make a welcome financial contribution via the thanks button. You will either be reassured or dismayed to know that I will return sooner than you might think with something else. There, bet you can hardly wait. Sooner than you think, pilgrims.